Hey everybody, Jesse Doback here, and we're live, another episode of Beyond Big Influence with Jesse Doback, and I have a very great friend of mine that's going to be on the line today. I'm going to introduce him in just a second. I got to tell you guys, I'm super excited. We've had a lot of great people on the show recently, and we've had a lot of great feedback, so I really appreciate all of the kind words and everything that's coming in. Now, on today's show, we got a guy who his world just changed was it last week, Brandon?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. But he's been in business for a long time. Okay. I just want to say this, Brandon, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was until I was 27 years old, and I'm 37 now. I didn't even know what that word meant. I heard people using it, but I never really knew what it meant for me, or if I could actually become or be an entrepreneur. So this guy that we're having on the show today, he's been an entrepreneur since what? You were 15, 16 years old, or even before that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My first company was when I was 17. I thought I started when I was 13, but I had no product or anything. So officially 17.
So just a little background about Brandon. He created his own operating system when he was 16 years old called Surf OS. Was it, Brandon?
Yeah, absolutely. I got passionate into technology, computers from an early age. I saw what was happening in Silicon Valley, and I wanted to be a part of the bandwagon. So I did this project. I wrote an operating system from scratch just to kind of learn how the system works. So that was, right before I got the entrepreneurial bug, let's call it that.
There you go. Hey, well, that's a good bandwagon to go down and to be on, because those are the businesses that are kicking butt right now. They're thriving in this economy and what's going on in the world. Brandon's positioned perfectly for that with this company. We're going to talk about your business. I want you to get to know Brandon so you can figure out how to launch your business like Brandon did, or to utilize the resources and tools he has so you can launch your business if you're listening in right now. So make sure that you put a comment out there so we can see what you guys have to say. If you have any questions, any feedback, make sure you click like and the hearts. Once you start getting the information that you're going to get today, that you feel like, oh, I can use that. This is amazing stuff. So make sure you click that button, invite a friend, tag somebody, and then share this out on your timeline. Now, Brandon is an amazing guy. I met this guy, me and him clicked really good. I mean, I felt like we went to this mastermind together and we were kind of the outcast in there or something. Everybody else is talking about voodoo stuff, and they were doing it was astrology and numerology and all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is, but I know there's really powerful, amazing people in there. And then Brandon was in there, and he had a software too, just like I have. And so we kind of clicked, and we're like, okay, how can we kind of help each other? And he was looking to go to the next level with his business, which he has done since that event, and we have as well. So there's a lot of good resources at this event that we met at. Now, Brandon is the founder and CEO of a company called JetWebinar. So everybody out there, you've heard of Zoom, Zoom stock is through the roof. Well, Brandon's company, JetWebinar, his vision and his goals are, instead of you saying, I'm going to go Zoom, I'm going to go Jet. Right, Brandon?
Exactly. Why Zoom when you can jet?
Why Zoom when you can jet? That's a whole nother level. I mean, okay, so let's right there, that's beyond big influence moment. So that's really amazing. Now, Brandon acquired almost 3 million users. He has 3 million users in JetWebinar today, and he acquired a good amount last week, right, Brandon? Just big things are happening for you. We're going to get into your story, and everybody out there that wants to learn how to do webinars, we're going to start talking about that today. But first of all, Brandon, I want to know your story. How did you get started? Before we talk about Jet and all that, how did you get started as an entrepreneur? Why did you get the bug at such an early age?
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes way back, but I like to tell people I'm professionally unemployed, and I'm unemployable because I don't like showing up at a certain time, to do certain things. So I was always on the clock. I was always loving what I was doing. And from a very early age, my grandma gave us a computer to play around with. And, I grew up on a farm, so there really wasn't anything to do on the farm other than me play around on the computer. and we were connected to the internet, and I saw all of the exciting stuff that was happening in Silicon Valley, these big companies that were changing the world, innovating, creating new products and ideas and all that. And that's just something that always inspired me, especially coming from a small farm town and kind of a low key, laid back, which is great. But I wanted something really big. So as I got a little bit older, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go start my own business, do my own thing, and just try to make a go of it. And, I started my first business in high school, and I remember I was in math class doing my quarterly tax returns, my 941s. So I was totally nerding out, with that. And, I did that for probably 4 or 5 years, my first business. And then, headed out to the West Coast, living the California dream, as you know.
Yeah.
San Diego, so.
For sure.
Yeah.
Amazing, man. I didn't even know what tax returns were when I was in high school. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's how I got started with it. And I just, kept going.
Absolutely. So you didn't stop there. You kept going. Then you started a company, and it had what was it? Computer centers or what? How did that, go?
So I started at the time, the only thing I could really do is fix people's computers. Cause as they break all the time, and, grandma's always got to get her email fixed. So I was going to be that guy. And, so I just started doing that, hustling for dollars, and then became successful enough. I hired some people working for me, then opened up a couple of stores, had store managers and all that. And it was fun. And, one thing I realized, especially if you're just getting started in business, there's a lot that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And, I was learning a lot that I didn't know going into it. So there was, I ran into struggles around the 2008 financial crisis, just because the way I had my company set up and structured, I wasn't kind of ready to handle what was coming. So mm-hmm. it really threw a wrench in the works for me. So I had to go, and I realized there was a whole nother set of business skills that you needed to have when you're first getting started. So that kind of defined the next 5 or 7 years of my life. I was like, I want to learn from the best people who know how to build businesses, who are great at making millions of dollars and all that stuff. Because I'm like, I knew I could get myself as far as my knowledge would take me, but I knew I had a long ways to go. So, and ultimately that journey drove me into the webinar business where I am now.
Amazing. Do you consider yourself, you had success back then when you were building that first business of yours? Mm-hmm. What did you overall? Did it end up in an exit for you? Was it how did that work out?
Yeah. So I ended up exiting in the notion I sold it to my store managers because I just wanted to kind of get out of the area. Yeah. It wasn't a successful exit in terms of something I'd be, I would have wanted, but it's, at the end of the day, I realized I learned a lot because you got to have, especially in these COVID times, it's a good reminder. Most of us haven't experienced a downturn since the 2008 financial crisis, mm-hmm. but resilience, adaptiveness, and understanding of things like, debt and finance and cash flow, all of these are critical tools that'll help you navigate through financial downturns as well as upturns. And I find that the better you can develop those skill sets in yourself, the more capable you're going to be in these kind of times of financial crisis, which will actually put you on top instead of behind in business.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of lessons learned for you. I am absolutely certain, because now you are really thriving. So let's talk about now. So now you got this company, JetWebinar. How long have you been building this company?
Yeah, so JetWebinar has been in the works for a little over 4 years, probably 4.5 at this point. Okay. And just kind of the origin story in that too is, I got into, wanting to do software companies and build businesses. And I know with InfluencerSoft, you're totally in the software game now, Yeah. And that was always and that was my dream. But, going back to things I realized I didn't quite yet know is I didn't understand how to acquire customers at scale, how to find new people, find prospects, and all of that. And when I got into the online marketing world, probably 2012 or something, I had started a software company called Core CRM. So it was a CRM product, a customer relationship management tool, kind of like how Base or Salesforce is. So I built this really cool product But I couldn't sell it. I couldn't make any money with it. And I was just having a hell of a time with that. And I was like, I need to learn how to go and get new customers.
Mm-hmm.
And my business partner at the time, he came from the online marketing world doing webinars. And he told me of a recent webinar that he did with the client where they made $250,000 in half an hour or something crazy.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I need to learn what you're doing because, it's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, so that's what really jumped me into the webinar game, is understanding how to acquire customers and doing that for myself. And then, me as a technologist, as I got into the webinar game, I started to realize there were a lot of holes in the market as far as software and tools. And from my understanding of where the market was going in the next 5 to 10 years, because I could see how everything was becoming very much dependent on online video, which certainly pre-COVID that was true, but it's certainly true post-COVID. So that's where the business started back in 2016. Built the first version. Just been going from there.
And you were doing all the coding yourself?
Yeah. Yep. I built it all myself.
And now you have other people helping you, or is it still
now
you?
No, I have a team of full-time developers now. So thank God. It's yeah. You got to put in the work to get it started, but it's really great to have a team working for you because they can be way more efficient than you can on your own.
Yeah, guys. So if you're out there and you're looking to do something big, I mean, I highly recommend the software industry. Myself, I haven't built any code, but I found somebody that did, and I partnered up with them, and I've built what I've built, learning how to do marketing and building a company and building a team that could sell and promote and get the software launched in the country that we're in. So they built the software overseas and we brought it over here. So there's different ways to do it. And Brandon has created some beyond big influence now in his business. And he's on the verge of really cracking the code and going to huge levels. I mean, I think Brandon's company, I don't want to say a number, but his company's worth over $10 million now, probably closer to like 50 million now, I would think. So this really is a powerful thing that he's done, but I really think he's on the verge of building $1 billion company and competing with the top, webinar platforms and companies out there in the world. So Brandon, there's people out there now, they're trying to figure out like how they're going to use these tools. So I highly recommend, number one, guys, to check out JetWebinar. I'm going to go ahead and post the link here for you. So it's jetwebinar.com, right, Brandon? I didn't even verify that with you.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I don't know if there's any like special thing that we could send them, but just go to jetwebinar.com, check it out. If you're interested in it, make sure you get signed up. There's like a trial on there they could get, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have a 14-day free trial.
So you can try out a 14-day free trial. Let us know if you have any questions about the platform. We're looking to help you figure out webinars. Now, Brandon, somebody just getting started with webinars, what are a couple of things that you could tell people? Because I know like when you first saw the webinar thing and you're like, okay, I'm going to build this platform, you had to have some kind of vision about what you were going to do and how you were going to help people make money with it in a unique way. So can you tell us a little bit about like just maybe a couple things, like people out there, they're like, okay, I want to figure out how to use these platforms, potentially make some money. What are a couple things you could say to the people to encourage them, inspire them, and help them out?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple points I'd make on that. And first is to understand why webinars are so important as a marketing channel. And I say this being in the webinar business, not just to sell webinar stuff, but there's a reason I got into the webinar business, because I saw the power of using webinars as a part of your marketing mix. It's one of the easiest and fastest ways to acquire larger ticket customers, because essentially what you're doing is you're building a virtual relationship through online video, and you can do it at a large scale, because you can go, as you know, Jesse, you can put 5 people on a webinar, you can put 50, you can put 500, there's no limit really to how many people you can put on, as long as you have your systems and processes down. So as long as you understand the purpose of a webinar and then you invest the time into it, I'd say there's a couple of key areas that you want to focus on in the beginning to really get good at doing webinars. The first, and this is usually the biggest sticking point for a lot of people, is registration acquisition. So how do you get registrants for your webinar? How do you do promotions? If you want to get your first, let's say 100 or 500 registrants, or 10 for that matter, how do you do that? So do you run ads? Do you have a joint venture partner who emails to their list? There's a lot of different ways you can do it. But if you come up with an enticing topic that people are excited to hear about, and then you can get your promotion right, you get your registrants. And then from there, kind of the internal number that we use is 30%. So typically 20 to 30% of people that register actually show up and attend the webinar. And then so the next step is really honing in your presentation. So, I mean, you can do shorter or longer webinars, just kind of depends. Sometimes you can do it free form. But if you get the presentation down and then drive it to a call to action, on a good webinar, if you're just getting started, you might be able to get, 5 or 10 new customers, and the great thing is, because you've built a longer relationship with them by, let's say, having an hour-long conversation, it's a lot easier to get them to commit to, let's say, a higher ticket offering in the 1,000 or 5,000 range than it would be if you were just sending them to a landing page, for example. So it's a pretty easy way to get started with your business and build it from there.
Okay, let's talk about this. So that's like in the marketing world, you want to make some money with a webinar and all that. What about like a business or just people that want to just meet up with people? I mean, now the world's set up, or it's in a position right now where you can't even go meet somebody in person. Like you can't even communicate with your employees. So I know there's ways to do like webinars. Does this also work for meetings? That's the question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So we have meeting functionality built in to JetWebinar. We call it Jet Call.
Yeah.
And so the Jet Call solution lets you put however many people you want into a room together, kind of mix and mingle, have a conversation, do your business meetings there. So yeah, that absolutely works as well.
Awesome. So that's amazing. So anybody out there looking for a tool that's something different than Zoom, everybody's using that, like JetWebinar, try it out, guys. What could you say is a reason why they would use yours over like a Zoom?
So if you're just getting started in the marketing game or building your business, JetWebinar gives you a lot more tools to customize your entire experience. We have drag and drop page builders. We have customizable templates. We have a lot more customizable features on the webinar room where you can go and engage with your prospects in a way that platforms such as Zoom can't even really touch. Now, another aspect, and this is one of our key differentiators, if you're someone who does larger scale webinars, we actually specialize. We're one of the only platforms, I'd say we are the only platform in the world that can handle a very large number of attendees and not break down at any level. So if you wanted to put 10,000 people, 20,000 or more on it, one of the key innovations of our broadcast technology is we can deliver very high quality, very low latency video at a very large scale. So that's core to our platform, and which works out well if you're wanting to create engaging, interactive experiences with people, because there's just no delay in conversation.
Yeah, let me just say this too, and what Brandon's platform specializes in, which he just mentioned it. Now, if there's somebody out there, there was another webinar company I was talking to the founders of, and they specialize in more like smaller webinars and like automated webinars, and like it's kind of like one of those platforms. And they have a lot of users, very successful company, very successful platform. And then they had people that could put like 20,000 people on a webinar, like people that literally get 100 million views when they launch a video on Facebook. And they had one video where they got 1 billion views on Facebook. Okay, so this person has a massive audience, hundreds of million. They have over 100 million followers. Now, they said if this person does a webinar, they're going to put like 50,000 people or 100,000 people on a webinar. And like literally, our software cannot support that. Now, your software, Brandon, if you had that person and they were going to do a webinar and 100,000 people were going to attend, your platform could support it? Wow. Yeah. That's impressive. Could it support 1 million people on a webinar?
Yeah, it's been regression. Basically, it's been tested up to 1 million in internal tests.
Okay, so up to 1 million, you would say it can handle the load.
I mean, theoretically, it can go higher, but that's just what it's been tested internally.
Okay. So it's not going to slow down. I mean, because you get like 20 people on Zoom and it slows down. So
Right. Yeah, it doesn't slow down at all. There's some special sauce we have going on.
There you go. So guys, check out JetWebinar. You want to start building up meetings, and over time you're going to get more and more people on. This is one that you want to learn. It has a lot of built-in tools. Some of the stuff that we do, we're going to integrate with JetWebinar as well. Brandon's partner, he's our part, one of Brandon's partners. He's got multiple partners in his business, but one of his partners is also our partner. So that's, me and Brandon are super connected, and we were at the guy's mastermind. That's how we met. I mean, so we're doing things together. I love Brandon. He's such a good guy. He's like the most stand-up guy you'll ever meet. You get in touch with him. Is there a way that people can follow you or get in touch with you personally, or you kind of stay off social media?
Actually, that's a pretty good question. I guess you could follow me on Twitter. If you go to at JetWebinar, we post some regular updates there, I guess. It's probably a great place to start.
Okay. So if you want to follow Brandon, go to at JetWebinar on Twitter. And you can start following along. Do you post? How often do you usually post on there or communicate on there?
We're starting to build that up a little bit more, so kind of infrequently at this point. But we're, as we get more followers, I'm probably going to prioritize that more.
Okay, so I just have a question for you. Why Twitter? Why you choose that? Just because? Sorry for putting you on the spot. I'm just wondering, because I've never really used Twitter. I've never really heard people say they're going to build Twitter unless they're like a celebrity. So
yeah. I mean, it's a good way to post a quick update and get it out to a decent sized audience. Like if you have people following you, it's a good place to do it. I don't really have we have our JetWebinar Facebook page. I haven't really put as much time on social. But it's something that's becoming more of a pressing issue because getting people asking about it, like you. So I need
Absolutely. Yeah. So we might have to bring Brandon on one of our shows to talk about how to launch your Twitter once he gets to 1 million followers, because we'll make sure that he does. So that's amazing, Brandon. Well, you're going to create beyond big influence. I have a feeling, you already have, if you got 3 million users. How many softwares out there have 3 million users? Not too many that I know of. They're like, I got 100,000 users. That's great. Well, Brandon's got 3 million. So what's your goal for how many users and how many people you want to reach with your platform?
Like I said, I threw out that big B number, the billion, because one of the things I've noticed is people, well, first,
it's amazing.
I believe the term big, hairy, audacious goals, the BHAG there was a book, whatever it was, Jim Collins. But yeah, you want to set big, ambitious goals. And also too, one of the things that I love doing is like, as we're hosting these live events and we've got a large number of people on, the back end, I love pulling up, we have an internal map that shows all the people across the globe that are connected to our, our live streaming at any given point. And you can see almost every country in the world, has been, people tuned in for just crazy places you wouldn't think. And, I think that, if we can really set a goal of, spreading and getting the message out there and getting a lot of people hosting events, and, it's very realistic to get, 1 billion people using a platform or software. Facebook's done it, Zoom's certainly on their way. And, in this post-COVID world, everyone's moving to online video. So, got to set a big goal.
Let me just say this. You're on the Beyond Big Influence show with Jesse Dobeck, and we're not thinking small on this show, man. I want you to give the whole planet, the whole 7 billion, 8 billion people on there. Yep. That's my goal, because this needs to be a household name. This needs to be something that everybody's using. And with what we're doing with Influencer Soft, I didn't name our software Influencer Soft for no reason. Like, we want all the biggest influencers in the world using this as it evolves. The Kardashians and LeBron James and Oprah and everybody's going to be using our software. And that's the mindset that you need to have when you're doing software. Is changing the world, doing it in a huge way, getting the word out, building a massive brand. And that's what Brandon's doing. He's got a great start. 3 million users, man. That's a big feat. I know you're toasting to that, but I know the goals are beyond that, and we're going to do everything we can to help you out. So Have you ever had an ambition to be an influencer yourself, or are you kind of more behind the scenes and you like to stay out of the spotlight? What would you say?
That's a good question, actually. Just having a conversation last week with a friend about this. I do have goals and ambitions to be an influencer. I think there's a lot of benefit for that. I tend to myself be more the behind the scenes kind of guy, though, just because I think it's, it's easier to get work done and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, there's downsides to being an influencer, but there's a ton of upsides. So, it's one of those questions I think everybody has to kind of work through on their own. Because, for example, we have a client who, he became a big influencer on YouTube. And he told me about the first time he was out doing an event in Australia, and he's from San Diego. And he's like, the first time I got recognized on the street in Australia, and it just kind of floored him, because he's like, wow, I've never been here before and people know me. So, you lose that sense of anonymity when you do that, which has its pros and cons. But I think going through and just keeping your head down, working hard, building value behind the scenes, letting other people take the credit in the front, that's probably a better strategy in the long run. But
yeah, there's some consequences you put yourself out there. I mean, if you feel the need to really put yourself out there and you want to, get that spotlight and fame, there's kind of behind the scenes influencers, and then there's the famous ones. Now, there's some pros and cons, like you said. It might excite you, might get you going, your adrenaline pumping when somebody comes up and they know who you are, they want to take a selfie with you and you're in Australia. Or it might be like, hey, I just want to be left alone at some point, like it might get out of hand, like where you can't even leave your house, without the paparazzi chasing you down. So there's some things to think about. And, a lot of the people, like I've had both people on the show, right? So we've had people that have done $1 billion exits and made massive things happen, and they're just influencing CEOs and big decision makers behind the scenes. Nobody even knows them. They don't have a social media. They're not really doing it. And then we have people that are talking about, I have 3 million followers, and, it's all about how many views and how many clicks, and and they're doing that, and they're creating content, and they're executing and doing all that. It's great. But, they're not probably as versed in like doing $1 billion deals and making big influence happen, where it could just happen like that and move quicker. So it's interesting that you are a little bit interested in it. If you are, at some point, I know we can definitely build some influence, because I'm kind of doing both myself. I like to think I can influence people behind the scenes a little bit, but I probably more so specialize in like creating content. But I'm kind of playing both sides of the coin. But that's just because I work with a lot of influencers. So anyway, that's interesting.
Yeah, I had heard someone a while ago say a very interesting point, that if you go down past number 10 on the billionaires list, almost everyone on that list, if they were sitting next to you on a bus, you wouldn't be able to recognize them.
Yeah.
So it's exactly. You can have a lot of wealth and influence and not have to have the fame aspect to it.
Yeah.
Or some people want that.
Yeah, I mean, you got like Jeff Bezos, the guy's going to be maybe a trillionaire, and then people know him because he's created something huge, and it's in the software industry. And then you got trillionaire people that you don't even know who they are, because they're just the families of like all these different people. And so it's like the richest people in the world nobody knows, because they don't want to know. If you did know how much money they had, like it posted publicly, and like they don't want you to know that. That's how they keep their power and they keep their positioning. So it's interesting, the whole how to build influence and the art of war, or whatever you want to say about it. And I know you like to read books. You got some books behind you. What's your favorite book, Brandon?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I've been reading a lot on acquisitions and like M&A recently, because we're going through a growth phase in our company where we're buying other companies. So I've been kind of jumping in the finance game. Actually, the books behind me there, I recently got a collection, because I'm an avid reader. It's a collection of the most speaking of influence, most influential books going from 800 BC all the way up to the 20th century, starting with Homer's Iliad and moving into like Max Weber and stuff like that. So Aristotle,
Wow.
Plato. So that's the top two shelves there.
So is your goal to read all those?
In my life, yes.
Yeah,
It's a multi-decade project. There's 32,000 pages, and it's not small, or it's not big print.
Yeah, 32,000 pages, small print, and probably information that you might have to think about and ponder and contemplate a little bit before you move on to the next page. So you might be there for a little bit. That's amazing, though, that you're learning. How much of your career and success would you attribute to reading books and learning information like that, like the way you learn it?
I would say quite a bit, probably like 80, 90%. Because the thing is, and I've jumped into this a lot in personal development modalities such as NLP, but success comes from modeling others who are successful. Yeah. And you have to be able to go through and identify, well, first, what's your vision? What do you want to accomplish? And then be able to understand enough to be able to clearly articulate your vision in a way that's measurable and actionable. And then from there, find someone who's already doing what you want to be doing, figure out what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it, and then try to emulate that as much as you can, usually without questioning it, which is kind of a tough part. We want to overthink things sometimes, but you want to basically try it on yourself, and then once you've done it, then take it and learn it and adapt it to your own situation. And that's the thing, through my journey as an entrepreneur, I've realized one of the biggest mistakes early entrepreneurs make is they try to replicate exactly what someone did in the past, which it may not actually work in the current situation or time. Because, so let's say Bill Gates started Microsoft in the 1970s. What worked for him in 1970 doesn't necessarily work for me or you in 2020, right? But we have our own sets of opportunities and things to deal with. But you got to be able to have enough intuition to go and try to model and try new things, which is where like reading and all that comes into play, because it exposes you to new worlds of information and new ways of behaving that are previously outside, your conscious awareness.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us today, Brandon. Everybody out there, make sure you go check out JetWebinar, get your free trial, start utilizing the tools, and also using it for meetings and then making money with it. If you're driving traffic there to sell a product or a service, do a presentation first, hopefully. No, you definitely got to do a presentation, then make an offer. There's different ways that you can utilize JetWebinar to make money and keep track of people and just communication through video. It's the new world. That's where we're headed. Definitely jump on. JetWebinar is going to be massive. Brandon and I are doing things together and just super blessed and excited just to know this guy, just to be able to call him, text him, and sharing some wins together with this guy. And he made a huge acquisition last week that just changed his life. I'm sure are your parents proud of you from that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great to have their support over all these years, because in the beginning, it's usually more dream than result. So they stuck
were
through
they supportive of you in the beginning? Were they trying to say get a job and stuff? Or like, I guess you had all your ducks in a row at that point.
Yeah, well, they were supportive of me, and they also knew that if they told me to get a job, I would never do it. So
okay.
They knew me.
Parents entrepreneurs as well, or no?
My dad was. He had his own small business. And he was like an inventor himself. He came up with a really cool idea in the logistics industry. And so he always had his feet in it. Yeah. That's probably where I got it from.
So he could relate. And you kind of picked that up probably from him. And, I'm a big sports guy. My dad's like, that's all he wants to talk about is sports 24/7. So that's what I got doing. I mean, what I did, it's like, well, what'd you do when you were 1 to 27, Jesse? Well, I was playing sports. I thought I was going to be the next Michael Jordan. What do you mean? Yep. So, I mean, everybody's got their path. You probably get a lot from your parents. That's why we tell Brandon's story, so you can relate and understand who he is, where he came from. And man, you're positioned perfectly right now. I mean, could you think of anything else you'd rather be doing right now, or is this it?
Oh, no, this is it. Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And the thing is too, like, this was even in the pre-COVID environment. I just had a sense that the world was moving to online video. I saw all this cool stuff happening around it. I knew bandwidth was getting better. People, 5G now is coming online. The whole world's getting connected with it. And ironically, like post-COVID, it just accelerated the world and moving to online video, because now it's critical for us. We're all having conversations through chats like this, and it's going to be that way for next however long. And I think we just kind of have to adapt to it. So, I'm passionate to be kind of a part of that conversation, be able to add value any way that I can, connect the world through Jet, and hopefully make some people's dreams happen with it.
Awesome. Not hopefully, we're going to do it, Brandon. You are Brandon's the most modest guy. People always say that about me. Brandon's the same way, just a humble guy. But I think that's why you're getting success. I really do, man, because you put the weight on your shoulders. You're true to yourself. You're honest with yourself, and you're humble, and you can make things happen. So it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Is there any last words or anything you want to say to the people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I love to give advice to first-time entrepreneurs and people that are just getting started. And one of the things that I've learned deeply throughout the years is this notion of persistence and resilience. And it's critical to understand that if you want to succeed in business, the way to win is to just keep moving forward and always pay attention and learn your lessons and move on. And that's why most people don't actually make it, is because when times get tough, they give up. But if you learn from your mistakes and then you adapt and then you move forward over, a certain period of time, you're going to do what you need to do to get to the next level. And that kind of resilience and tenacity, whatever word you want to put to it, really is the secret to success. So if you're on that path, keep going. If you ever feel down or feel rough, find friends around you that are also on that path too, because at least you can share the bad stories, and when the time comes, you can share the good stories. So
yeah, it's important who you have around you. I'll say that 100%. You just make sure you have the right people around you, people that can move you forward, people that think big and beyond big, and that are having success. I mean, they always say the 5 people that you hang around with the most, if you average out their success or what's going on in their lives, probably what's happening in yours. So, so definitely, that's a great point. So here's the last thing that I want to leave you guys with. Can you see that, Brandon?
Yep, there we go. Why Zoom when you can Jet?
There you go. That's the last thing, guys. JetWebinar. Jump in, make sure you get your free trial, and get up with the technology, because this is going to be a huge platform, and it'll have other tools and different things, and we'll be integrating with Jet, with InfluencerSoft, and big things coming. So thanks for joining the show today, Brandon. It was amazing. Got great information. You kept it real, as you always do. And everybody out there that tuned in and got value from this, make sure you share this to your friend. Make sure you share this on your timeline, especially people that are looking for inspiration on how to launch an online business. You're going to need JetWebinar to do it. Okay. So anyway, thank you for joining us today, Brandon. And thank you everybody out there that tuned in, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of Beyond Big Influence.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for joining.